What is happening?
I will tell you what is happening. I am saving my best friend's marriage.
The Big Bang Theory wasn't merely a sitcom, it was an international phenomenon. Week in and week out, millions of people tuned in to see a group of eccentric super geniuses go about their lives, finding love, friendship, and the mayhem of day-to-day existence. It wasn't merely another program, it became the one that defined an age of television. For more than a decade, viewers tracked Leonard, Sheldon, Penny, Howard, and Raj as their quirky but lovable behavior converted scientific terminology into joke gold. Beyond the humor, though, existed a world the viewers never experienced, a world of arbitrary rules, inventive discipline, and jaw-dropping secrets that enabled the show to run for 12 remarkable years. And at the core of those unwritten rules was one that left viewers totally shocked. A rule which Kaley Cuoco, the actress who plays Penny, had to abide by following a close-to-tragic incident that could have revolutionized television. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on The Big Bang Theory, diving behind the scenes of this iconic sitcom to uncover the real-life restrictions, surprises, and emotional decisions that shaped every episode and changed the lives of the cast forever. A show that redefined television. When The Big Bang Theory premiered on September 24th, 2007, nobody could have predicted the phenomenon it would become. Developed by Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady for CBS, the show appeared on the surface to be a specialty comedy, a tale of two nerdy physicists living in Pasadena, California, and the aspiring actress who moves in across the hall. But over the seasons, it blossomed into something more substantial, a love letter to friendship, intelligence, and humanity. Johnny Galecki's Leonard Hofstadter and Jim Parsons' Sheldon Cooper were the brains of the operation, physicists at Caltech, whose genius was matched only by their social awkwardness. Across the hall was Penny, played by Kaley Cuoco, a small-town girl with Hollywood dreams and a heart of gold. Her warmth and charm balanced out the rigid intellectual energy of her neighbors. As the show expanded, so did its universe. Simon Helberg's Howard Wolowitz, the flamboyant aerospace engineer with flashy dress and even flashier ego, and Kunal Nair's awkward astrophysicist Raj Kuthrapali, rounded out the group's dynamic. Later seasons added Mayim Bialik as Amy Farrah Fowler and Melissa Rauch as Bernadette Rostenkowski, deepening the show's emotional resonance. Even recurring characters such as Stuart, played by Kevin Sussman, the owner of the comic book store, were eaten up by fans. Together, they created a television family that was real. Viewers recognized themselves in the over-the-top pauses, the rituals of friendship, and the pains of growing up. But behind the magic that made this show seem so effortless lay structure, discipline, and a very, very long list of rules that everybody had to obey. Rules that built a television empire. Chuck Lorre was famous for keeping a tight ship. Behind each laugh track, each well-timed joke, was a hair-splittingly planned set. Lorre's credo was simple: fun doesn't mean chaos. The show could be warm and hilarious, but it could never be sloppy. Every line, every outfit, every haircut counted. With 279 episodes across 12 seasons, consistency was the show's hidden strength. That discipline was needed on and off set. The rules encompassed everything. What the actors could wear, how they spent their downtime, even types of jokes they could make on set. Some regulations were logical: safety measures, continuity contracts, and strict script following. Others were unexpected, such as the one prohibiting certain hobbies after Kaley Cuoco's harrowing horseback accident. An incident that had almost ended her career and could have reformed The Big Bang Theory. Kaley Cuoco's near-tragic accident. In September 2010, the cast was on top of their game. The show was a giant at the ratings, beloved by fans and critics alike. Off-camera, Cuoco was living her dream, juggling her life as Penny with a love of horses. But on one afternoon, everything shifted. When she was riding, her horse was spooked and tossed her off. She fell, and the horse attempted to jump over her and landed squarely on her leg. The damage was devastating. The doctors worried they would have to amputate. Chuck Lorre has since recalled that moment as the scariest in the entire 12 years of shooting. It was a series of miracles that enabled us to make it through that. He remembered, Kaley might have lost her leg. It could have altered everything. When Cuoco finally recovered, Lori made an unbreakable rule: no risky hobbies. No horseback riding. No motorcycles. No boating. He even wrote about it in his famous vanity cards, humorous messages that appeared briefly after each episode. After Season 4, Episode 7, he posted one that read, "Following Kaley Cuoco's horseback riding injury, I've instituted new rules governing acceptable leisure activities for the cast of The Big Bang Theory. Rule 1, no friggin' horses." It was meant to be funny, but the message was clear. The cast's safety came first. From that day on, what they did off-screen mattered just as much as what they did on it. The pain of staying in character. That devotion to continuity didn't end with safety. The look of the cast was not negotiable. Every character's appearance was iconic, from Sheldon's striped shirts and khakis to Howard's inhumanly tight jeans and flashy belt buckles. Simon Helberg liked to joke that he required butter on his legs to stuff himself into costume. Mayim Bialik's Amy Farrah Fowler wardrobe was another challenge. Her character existed in constant sweater weather regardless of the season. "I was sweating all the time," laughed Bialik. "Amy was temperature-less, cardigan time all the time." These styles became instantly iconic, but they were not without their price. The actors put themselves through discomfort for the sake of continuity, knowing that an even minor visual adjustment would mislead fans. Haircuts were an even more rigid concern. When Kaley Cuoco shaved off her long blonde locks into a pixie prior to Season 8, the choice resulted in panic behind the scenes. For Chuck Lorre, it wasn't merely a haircut, it was Penny's persona. The public fell in love with the character, not merely how she acted, but what she looked like. He said, "Shifting that overnight was a blunder." For Cuoco, it was a risk of creativity. For the producers, it was a visual continuity break. It was an experiment that showed that even personal decisions could have repercussions throughout the production of one of the world's largest shows. No pranks, no roughhousing. Where strict appearance codes kept the show appearing flawless, behavior codes kept the set operating efficiently. Following one harmless prank gone wrong, practical jokes were outlawed forever. On the set, during filming of season SAX's Valentine's Day episode, Cuoco and Johnny Galecki got into an on-set prank where they pretended to punch each other to get the crew laughing. Cuoco was to dramatically fall out of her chair, a harmless gag. But when she landed on the floor, the chair hit her head, and she began bleeding, needing stitches from a plastic surgeon. The following day, the set was shrouded in placards that said, "No more jokes. No more roughhousing." The games were over, and no one challenged it. No ad-libbing allowed. For most sitcoms, the actors do improvise, bringing their own style to scenes. Not on The Big Bang Theory. The writers had every line nailed down. Melissa Rauch, who played Bernadette, said, "The show is like a filmed piece of theater. It's so tightly scripted, there's no room for ad-libbing." Jim Parsons went one step further. His character Sheldon involved memorizing intricate scientific banter, phrases most people could hardly pronounce. He had index cards with him everywhere, constantly rehearsing. "There wasn't a set piece that didn't have my scripts or note cards in it," Parsons said. The hard work paid off. His portrayal of Sheldon brought him 4 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe, but it wasn't easy. Parsons has said he quit drinking during the first 9 years of shooting just to stay sharp. "I wanted to be ready for it," he explained. Cuoco was impressed by his commitment, confessing, "I can't imagine the stress he was under." Why no one was ever allowed to dress like a Marvel hero? One of the biggest mysteries for viewers of the show was why the characters consistently dressed only in DC Comics costumes, never Marvel. The reason wasn't preference, it was business. Since The Big Bang Theory was a Warner Brothers show, they owned DC, so the show had it for free. Marvel's rights, however, were all wrapped up with several companies, so getting approvals would be expensive and complex. It was easier and safer to do legally, to stick with everything being DC. However, Marvel was not totally eschewed. The characters talked about it frequently, and even Stan Lee herself made a cameo appearance in Season 3. But costumes? Those were strictly off-limits. The science behind the humor. The Big Bang Theory boasted about being accurate. Every equation scrawled on a whiteboard, every scientific line of dialogue was approved by an actual physicist, Dr. David Saltzberg of UCLA. He supplied equations, formulas, and even fixed the cast's pronunciation of intricate terms, learning as a new language for the actors. Parsons once quipped that performing Sheldon's lines was like doing Shakespeare if Shakespeare spoke calculus. But with precision came pressure. It was grueling, Parsons conceded. You couldn't pretend, you had to make it sound like second nature, staying humble under the spotlight. With success came temptation. By the end of the third season, the cast members were global celebrities. They were flown around the globe for interviews, fan conventions, and award presentations. For others, it was overwhelming. Kunal Nair remembered that after their initial Comic-Con appearance, he was so hyped he nearly lost focus. Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady took him aside and imparted some wisdom that would inform the show's culture. Don't rush to be a solo act. Stay with the band. That line became a silent mantra for the cast. They relied on one another during the whirlwind of popularity, escaping oftentimes the chaos of Hollywood with group outings or friendly ping-pong games during hiatus. Their cohesion off-screen was the key to their on-screen chemistry, and it got them ready for the emotional test that would ultimately bring the show to an end. The unwritten rule, all for one, one for all. In 2018, as Season 12 began filming, the cast assumed they had at least another year left. Ratings were still high, the chemistry strong, but then came a meeting that changed everything. Chuck Lorre called everyone to his office. Kaley Cuoco and Johnny Galecki walked in expecting to discuss Season 13. Instead, Jim Parsons quietly announced that he couldn't continue. He needed to move on. Cuoco was shocked. I was like, go on with what? I didn't even know what he was saying, she would recall later. Lorre made one thing clear. The show would not continue without the entire team. He instructed them, we entered as a team, and we will exit as a team. That was the ultimate unofficial rule, the rule that killed the show. No substitutions, no spin-off with half the cast. The original group who embarked on this journey would complete it as one. Cuoco subsequently commented, that was the one thing we all agreed on. We came in together, we go out together. The end of an era. On May 16, 2019, The Big Bang Theory's last episode aired. It was the conclusion of a 12-year process that had redefined sitcom history. Cuoco's dad, who had been to every taping since the start, was presented with a chair bearing his name on it for the series finale, a testament to how intimate this experience had been for the entire team. When the cast had their last bow, the studio was filled with tears. Supporters everywhere felt the gravity of that moment, the end of an era that had set a generation of comedy. But for Kaley Cuoco, it wasn't simply the end of Penny. It was the start of a new chapter in her life. Following the end of the show, Cuoco dived into The Flight Attendant, a dark drama comedy that bagged her Emmy and Golden Globe nominations. But behind the glamour came personal struggles, including the breakup of her marriage to equestrian Carl Cook in 2022. Shooting during that vulnerable period was emotionally draining. It was like 24/7 depression, she confessed. My character was shattered, and so was I. But as with Penny, there was resilience for Cuoco. That same year, she met actor Tom Pelphrey at a premiere, and the attraction was immediate. Love at first sight, she referred to it. They had their daughter, Matilda,